Well, early in life, we lived kind of close to downtown. And as a kid, I'd walk to the movies downtown. And my later in life attorney had made the statement that I spent a misspent youth in the theaters of Wichita. And as I did, I thought, gee, this is fun. It'd be fun to be able to do that. And amazingly enough, that's kind of how I got started in it, because I had the old brownie camera, and away we went, making home movies on 8mm. And didn't do much of it in high school or anything. After I got married and had kids, and I had a bunch of kids anyway, we did that, and that's how I kind of got started.
I was born in Elkhart, Indiana, which is a little town of about 30,000. And this was back, I was born in 1939. So consequently, we didn't have television. We lived out in the country, sort of. And there weren't any children around who were about my age. So we had radio, and we had the funnies in the newspapers and a comic book once in a while. But other than that, why my mom wanted to be sure that we had some kind of entertainment. So she'd take us to the movies once a week, and it was the fabled Saturday matinee sort of thing. So there was a couple of cartoons and a cowboy picture and a serial and a Three Stooges or something, and then a detective picture. So this, 3 some hours and Saturday, and that just became my life. I loved it because you're seeing the world. And I thought, boy, I would really like to get into movies. So I always had this, and I got into drama then when I was in junior high school, and did a little acting. And I thought, boy, I'd really like to be a movie actor. And so one of the ways I was going to accomplish this was make my own films. And so I found this little camera in the trash once, in a neighbor's trash, and got a reel of film for it, and shot, and it didn't work right, and the film was all destroyed. Really disappointed. Well, when I was, Christmas that I was 14, I think it was. It was 1954, so I had been 15. My stepfather got me an 8mm, used 8mm movie camera, Keystone, and it was $30. And I wanted to roll a color film with it, but he didn't think we could afford that, so we just got black and white. And actually, he was getting it without my mother's knowledge because money was really tight. But I got a movie camera. And so then I shot my reel of black and white film, and that got me going. And so then I made a whole series of movies when I was in junior high and high school.
Well, actually, like most people in film, we played around 8mm, but not overly seriously. But I went to school here and was in theater, and we did a little bit of film, but not much. And then I went to Emporia State Teachers College to become a teacher. And not to say anything bad about anybody else, but I always thought it was slightly disingenuous when you went to a class and they were teaching something they had never done themselves or never experienced themselves. So I left school and packed my bag and went out to LA, and was very, very lucky to get on some production and stay. And even though with all the rigmarole of trying to get through the union and everything, I was able to break my way in, as they say, in the special effects department. And that's back in the day when things were actually practical effects.
A little over 10 years ago, I was getting phone calls from the film commissioner for the Wichita Film Commission, requesting that I help her find crew, or sometimes even cast, or whatever they were needing, a location. And I was happy to oblige, because I was pretty involved at the time with anything that we could produce in the Wichita area. And when she took a different job and left, there was nobody to fill that spot. but they had always contacted me at that point, and so I just kept going. And to this day, I'm still helping people when they come in with production needs, whether they're local or from out of state, find whatever they need and link them up, connect them to other people.
I became a Wichita actor by birth. As strange as that may sound, I say that because really no matter where I had been born, I was going to be an actor. An explanation for it, quickly. If I'd been born on the East Coast, the West Coast, you would know me already. But because I was born in Wichita, Kansas, I am the other Tom Hanks.
Well, I was very interested in entertainment all the time growing up, and my mother actually got me involved in acting. And she was in a play, and when she came home from rehearsal one time, she said, "Hey," I said, "How'd rehearsal go?" She said, "Great, you're coming tomorrow night." And so the next thing I knew, I found myself in a play, and I realized that, hey, if I want to go ahead and study that, it's very much connected to screen acting as well. So when I went to college to earn my bachelor's degree, I majored in theater because I wanted to continue to do that kind of an acting, but I also minored in cinema, which allowed me to learn the filmmaking, and I became friends with all of the film students. And then I would find myself picturing scenes from films that I wanted to make even while I was driving. There's been various periods of my life where that part of it's almost taken over, and I've continued to practice the art of theater in the meantime.
I'd always loved history. I grew up with history. I was very interested in my family's early connections to Kansas. They came in the 1850s. My Spurgeon family came in the territorial period, and that fascinated me. One particular individual in my family, who was my great-great-grandfather, fascinated me because I'd heard a story when I was a kid about him and about a gun and about a diary, and it just really interested me. In the 90s, and then in 2001, along with a couple of buddies, we went to Virginia, and we were close-up extras in a movie called Gods and Generals. And I do know that was the turning point, because when I came back from that experience, and we actually were there on 9/11, 2001, when the Twin Towers were hit. We were just near Stanton, Virginia, and we were in a scene with Jeff Daniels. We were standing next to Jeff Daniels when they came on the set and said, the towers have been hit. But I came back from that very interesting experience and determined to write a documentary.
Well, essentially how I got involved with the industry was, I don't want to say I was born in the industry, but I'm the youngest of 8, and my father in 1968 started his own production company, and he kind of used all of us kids as extras in commercials. He used to do a lot of production for new toys and stuff, so we had roles of just being an extra, not necessarily speaking parts, and so that's kind of how I got into the industry. And then later on, I started working with my father on a part-time basis. He restarted a production company and went from there. And one of the reasons I got into the industry, and I blame and at fault and give him credit, my father's, he made it look so fun and entertaining to do.
I became a filmmaker kind of by accident. I started out at the Wichita Eagle as a journalist, and I had a good career going, but I have always loved movies and was debating. I didn't get bored with journalism, but I wanted to do more creative stuff. So I was debating on going to film school or just diving in and figuring it out myself, which is how I do everything. So I studied on my own, and I've always been in theater in high school and college, directed some plays. So I wrote a script and did some studying, and I got involved with the Sundance Institute, and they went through their screenwriting program. And then from there, I decided to direct my first film because I didn't think it would get made otherwise.
After trying my best in the industry out in Los Angeles, Miami, Denver. Kind of gave up on it, came here and got a job at Old Cowtown Museum. And as it turns out, what little experience I had made me the most qualified person here to be able to handle film shoots, which can be invasive to a museum. So you kind of have to know a little bit of both to be able to keep things flowing. And as a result, I've been told I have the look that fits in good with the setting, so it's kind of fun. We have all sorts of different film crews come through, from commercials, in-house training videos, documentaries, movies, short films, and a lot of times they come in and I get a little part in there or something.
I had a counselor tell me, I think you want to be a graphic designer, because I kind of liked commercial art. So I got into graphic design. This is kind of leading to a point. So I always felt like that 18 to about 24, 25, I was doing more graphic design, and I do some drawing and stuff on the side. But I really wasn't doing a lot of art for me. And I sure as heck wasn't doing filmmaking, but I always loved filmmaking. But I didn't know how was I ever going to make films. This is 85, 86. It wasn't like now where you can just pick up your phone or something. It's an endeavor to make films. So I did a lot of reading and all these things about film, and I was buying cameras and stuff and shooting a little bit, but I was just, it was clunky. I would see films and want to do this. So it was kind of, I think one of the first films I ever made, so I got into it, was I had actually borrowed a camera from somebody. It was one of the first video cameras, and I had buddies that, I think this is the first thing I ever did. I had buddies that worked at KSAS, the television station, and they said, bring it in and you can direct it, but we'll cut it for you. So I started doing that, and then I started a group with some other people called the Famous Dead Artists, and I thought, well, I want to start showing some video at these fine art exhibitions. So I started making what I considered more art films, and that was super exciting. So how I got into filmmaking was technology got to a point where I thought it was accessible for an idiot like me, because I did one film that was all film, edited and everything, and I was like, Jesus, this is a lot smarter people doing this than me.
I've got a journalism background, and I was kind of at a crossroads in my career and just kind of felt this tap on my shoulder that an article I'd written just really felt like I needed to bring it to the big screen. So without knowing anything about filmmaking, I just kind of dove right in. I had I write screenplays as a hobby, and have studied that a little bit, but just really, in my mind, wanted to make a film version of this article I had written. And a few months after toiling around in the wilderness, a mutual friend of ours introduced me to Kenny, and just could not recommend him more as a film editor, which he agreed to take on that role. He ended up taking on a lot more than that, but the final product was called Out Here in Kansas. It was a half-hour doc short that ended up doing well on the film circuit. It's on Amazon now. I'm extremely proud of it, and I don't know if I'd be as proud of it had Kenny's expertise not been such a huge part of it. And we just really clicked. We became very good friends, and as soon as that project was over, it didn't take us long to decide we wanted to keep going on something else.
Yeah, so I guess going back to when I started as a film, in high school I was always goofing around with a camera and making movies in the backyard with my friends, and I guess I never really considered it a job. It was just something I did for fun, and took several pathways through college trying to decide what I wanted to do, and ended up going to film school. And I was in Denver, and I was planning on staying out there, but I ended up moving back here to be closer to family, and the filmmaking bug didn't leave, so still doing it. But it's Adam mentioned us meeting up with the Out Here in Kansas project. Finding one thing I've learned through my career is finding someone that you can work well with and you enjoy. I mean, it's a huge commitment. You guys know, of course, tackling a huge project. You're going to devote years, months of your life to it, and it's important that you have a good working relationship with your crew.
So I was hired by Wichita State University to come in and be the director of theater, and that was in 2008. And we have a lot of students that were interested in learning about film, and I was learning about film, and I was really intrigued at that time. This was probably 4 years after I'd been here, 3 or 4 years, 2011, 2012-ish. Got interested in web series, and so I'm trying to remember the timeline. I think it was the fall of 2014 actually put forward to the theater faculty, why don't we do a feature-length film every year? In 2013, I had done a feature length over the summer just to see if we could do it, to see what it would take to make it happen. So we knew what we were doing, sort of, and the theater faculty really liked that idea. They really supported it and said, yeah, let's go for it. So we actually had, a budget for the film, and so we shot our first film, Redux, posters on the wall. That was the fall of 2015. Last year we shot Sidekicks, which was very challenging for us because it involved special effects, which we hadn't done before. And we are now in the editing process for me, my 5th feature-length film for WSU Theater. It's the 4th.
I became a filmmaker out of necessity. I've been an actor here in Wichita for 25 plus years. Then I split my time between LA and here until my son was born, and then when he was born with Down syndrome, I was faced with either branching out or finding something else to do, so I decided to branch out. So I got into writing and taught myself how to write screenplays. And then I got into directing and producing, kind of right alongside with the writing, and then I got into teaching on-camera acting to various students here that many of them have went off to LA and are living in LA and pursuing the business and starting to make some headway. So it's always good to see.
Right before I turned 17, like the month before I turned 17, I moved back to Wichita. And I wanted to make a movie. I'd wanted to make a movie for a long time. I had made one movie once when I was 14. It was called Ghost Carol. It was a 20-minute shot on Super 8 movie, largely financed by charging my friends for acting in it. If you want to be in the movie, it'll cost you $20. An idea that many producers have said, hey, that's brilliant. Like big-time producers, I wish we could do that. My big sister, she's defending me. She said, hey, I think Leif has a lot of great ideas. I think he really has some talent. And I'm betting you, by the time he's 18, he's going to be making a real movie. That stuck in my head. That was one of the things that occurred to me that night when I'm living in this abandoned house. It literally was an abandoned house. It was falling apart. And we had cops breaking in there. That's a whole other story. But we were up in the attic. They never could find us. But I'm sitting there. That was the other thing. Not only are my dreams getting small, but if I'm going to make that deadline of getting a movie going by the time I'm 18, I got to get my life turned around. And so I moved back to Wichita. And one of the things I did was, when I was 17, I wrote Darkness.
I got into filmmaking after I had a television show that was on Fox for 17 years called Heavy Pork. And so kind of looking for a break, doing something different, and started working on a freelance film by a crew coming in from Los Angeles that were shooting a film about the Bloody Bender family of Kansas. And so that's really when I first started getting involved in film at a higher level. Wasn't really expecting it and didn't really know where it was leading to.
I interned on some film festivals in Texas, and while I was working at KWCH, I had several short films that I was part of or starting to be part of because people were asking me to act in them or just provide some sort of support to the ways that things were going to happen, locations, that sort of thing. And the reason that I became a filmmaker was because I had a group of friends that said, you know, like all these films and you know all these back end things, and we don't really have somebody that's doing that. We had a lot of younger guys who had a lot of technical knowledge and were able to put together a film, but at the end of it they're like, well, I didn't really like how the story went, or the flow, the way that we shot something was a little bit difficult, and it feels like we made a movie that's already been made before. And so I'm kind of the guy that's that's already been done, that's this movie, and we need to rethink that and then reset. And so that's how I became part of a team. And then Shane and I at KWCH started writing together on our breaks.
Probably I had an interest in doing it from since I was in probably about high school or before that. But when I really got into doing some projects was when I met some people in college who had a similar interest. Primarily Jason Bailey. We did a lot of film productions. He had an interest in writing scripts, which I had no interest in. So I was primarily interested in the technical, the camera and editing. So he had an interest in writing the scripts, and he had a lot of people who wanted to act, and so it was a pretty good collaboration.
Well, I've acted in theater for years. I was a stage actor. Still am a stage actor. But the first film experience I had was, I think, Nicholas Barton's film Wichita, back in 2013. Before that, it was all stage work for since about 2008. I was an actor, theater major at Wichita State in 82, 83 for a couple of years. And then, like most people here, I got a job. And I've been working in that job for 32 years now. Still there. But the first thing, I went to an audition from connections from some friends who I worked with in theater, and got cast as Wyatt Earp in Wichita.
I became familiar the year that I graduated from college. I came back to town, and I read an article in the newspaper about Tim and about this guy wanting to start a film festival here. And it seemed both highly ambitious and highly improbable, but it was something that I had to be a part of. And I don't know of another person who's taken on any project in this city with more passion than Tim did. The money wasn't there. In the beginning, the resources weren't necessarily there. The audience was to a point in place, but not enough to sustain a film festival for 16 years at that time. And Tim just had a tenacity and a passion, and like we do now, I mean, he believed in Wichita. He believed that Wichita could be a great arts community, and he believed that there was talent in this city that both should be showcased, and talent from all over the country and all over the world that people in this community would connect with and find fascinating and learn something from. And he, like I say, he did more for filmmaking in this community, I think, in the early 2000s than anybody else, and we have hung on to his legacy through this festival with great passion.
When I was in college, I was a music composition major, and I was approached by some fellow students because they were making a movie and they wanted me to supply music for it. In doing this project, I discovered that I really enjoyed making movies. So a couple of years later, about 2011, I approached my friend Tim. We had known each other for a very long time, and asked him if he'd be interested in helping me with a script project.
Yeah, I was suckered into it. But it has been something I'm glad I was suckered into, because the more I learn about how to do filmmaking, the more fun I have.
I wouldn't exactly say I'm a Wichita filmmaker. I'm a filmmaker. I've been making film or shooting for a long time. I guess I wouldn't call it filmmaking. I call it storytelling. That's what I do. It doesn't matter the medium that I'm doing it in is storytelling. When I picked up a camera, I think the first documentary or video type thing I made was in high school, 2002. And that I made a documentary about my neighborhood, and it was just something for a class project, but it was something I was really into. And then I made a a short film based on the movie Scream, and it was because the Scream mask was all popular, so we used that and we created a whole like Scream-like movie based on like people in my high school. And it just started off as me playing with a friend at home, and then we just said, hey, why don't we do this all at school? And I went to a performing arts school, so plenty of actors in the building. I was an art student, so I wasn't even there for anything related to filmmaking.
I got my start in filmmaking probably a little bit different than a lot of folks did. I didn't study it in college. I actually got a degree in public relations from Kansas State University. I think I graduated in 2008. And I worked in communication for a couple years and just doing various jobs. Worked for a nonprofit, worked for an educational service center after that. And when I was working there, was this place in Hutchinson, and they had a whole closet full of video gear. Like, I think 5 DVX 100s, a Loa light kit. There was even like a video switcher. They had gotten it through a grant. And I just I was like, it was this big sprawling office, and I stumbled into a closet because I just like, explore stuff. And there's just all this video equipment. And I was like, what is this? And they said, oh, we had a grant a couple years ago, and the guy who was using it, left, and we're not using it anymore. And I was like, can I like play around with it? And they were like, oh yeah. And so I just started messing around with it. And started just by researching YouTube. I didn't know anything. I'd done a little bit of audio editing in college. I worked at the college radio station. So I kind of understood that aspect of it. But just started doing more and more of that. And the organization I worked for, they were pretty awesome about just letting me kind of learn. And that over the course of maybe 3 or 4 months, I came to them. I said, I'd really like to just do this, if that's okay. And they said, okay, yeah. So they kind of came up with some projects, video projects for us to do. And I was there for, I think, probably 2.5 years after that. And that's about the time where I kind of started getting into filmmaking. I, reached out. I think I was just looking online. I don't remember where. I think maybe it was like a Facebook group or something. And I met Nate Smith and Anthony Bradley. And we made our first film together, and that was probably 2009 or no, 2011 maybe. And that was the first one, and I was the shooter. None of us knew what we were doing. It was each of us. It was our first movie together. Nate was the actor, and Anthony was the director and wrote it. And yeah, and I just took to it, and that's I guess how I got started.
So I started off acting. I was an appliance repairman, and we were filming a television commercial, and one of the actors didn't show up. So like zombie commercial for local TV. So I ended up acting in that, really enjoyed it, had a mohawk at the time, and got a casting call for a commercial where they're looking for a guy with a mohawk, and then from there just took some film classes and started off like gradually helping on set and eventually moving from acting into production.
My family moved here in 2003. It's actually my senior year in high school when we moved here, and I've already been wanting to do film and stuff for at least since I was about 12 years old. So that's something I knew I wanted to do from the start. And just moving here, I kind of wanted to see what the film scene was, or just media in general. And at least I noticed Wichita seems to be they're really into the arts, various mediums and stuff, which I did notice. I must admit, when I first moved here, I didn't notice a lot of the film industry, and maybe just because I didn't know people at the time. Since, learning about the Tallgrass Film Festival and other, broadcasts and stuff like that, I have come in contact with more people, but when I first moved here, I didn't really think that Wichita had much of a film scene, but within the past 10 years, I've noticed a whole lot more of that.
I became a filmmaker. It's been officially since 2014. I've been making movies with Roy and Gina here to my left. We started America's Front Porch Film Co. Before that, Roy and I have been best friends since 5th grade, and we really got into storytelling about that time, and made movies in college and different projects like that. And then it was a while after college that I was able to amass some equipment of my own, and then we were able to start production once Roy met Gina. We became America's Front Porch and started to actually make stuff.
I started doing film around Wichita probably 4 years ago. I considered it for a few years, just kind of decided that why not? It's a fun thing, and I needed a hobby. And just kind of started connecting with people around town, and met some folks through a project that introduced me to some other folks that introduced me to some other folks, and kind of just been rolling ever since.
My wife and I, we didn't really have all the money or the resources, normally go out all the time, so what we would do is we stay at the house, look up pictures on the internet, look up music videos, and we would write our own version of short stories along to those music videos. As time went on, we started getting into more like web series that we found on YouTube. And then from there, I said, man, that's really something that I think I want to do. Kind of transition from the short stories to the actual web series. And then from there, I started writing scripts. My wife got pregnant with our first child, so I was up very late writing a lot of scripts, making runs to get her whatever she wanted, whatever she was craving for. So, and then after that, I got in contact with a good friend, Devon Bray of Bray Films, is who I do majority of my filming through, and showed him some of the scripts. I know he was in doing music videos at the time, and I wanted to see if he wanted to collaborate, and piqued his interest immediately, and we've been doing that for about 4 or 5 years now.
When I was about 6 or 7, I started making comic books and trying to tell stories and draw, and I really took my first steps into becoming a filmmaker when I was about 12. I started teaching myself animation, and I haven't stopped since. I bought a camera, then tried to spread out as much as I possibly could with what I was doing.
Well, I got into filmmaking kind of on happenstance, or what's the word I'm looking for? Serendipity, literally. I was looking for a way to show people I could score film, because I'm primarily a film composer. And it just so happens the day I was like looking through other people's reels that I could possibly re-edit or whatever, there was a police shooting down in South Carolina that had ended in a mistrial, and my mom had left a voicemail later that evening while I was taking a nap, and her voicemail actually guided
the reasons why I made that first film, which is called The Voicemail.
So, I mean, there was a point where we both worked full time, started the business, and then we're doing creative videos on the side. And it was a lot.
Yeah.
But now it's interesting because our business is growing, and it's getting hard again because our business has a lot of traffic going on.
Sure.
Which is great for us, but we're still, we meet, at least weekly just for creative reasons and try to make sure we come out. We have our YouTube channel, which helps us just keep the creative stuff going and at least keep ideas revolving so that we can come up with ideas. But, I mean, we've got a stack of scripts sitting somewhere for short films, and then we've got a list online somewhere on a Google Doc somewhere of our stupid YouTube ideas that we want to do just to entertain people and make them laugh. So, and then on top of that, every day it's emails and shoots and all that.
It's been really tough lately with the business growing, which is great. And if we get to the point where we are making enough money from the business to hire employees to make more time for us to focus on creative stuff, that'd be awesome.
But then it's just going to help other people too, and it's going to get more people involved with that.
Yeah.
And be part of our team.
I'd say almost every week I think about, like, man, I wish I had time to just start writing a script, and then I wish I had more time for us to film that short film and then submit it to Tallgrass, because deadline's coming up for us right now, and we don't have anything out yet because we've been focusing so much on the business that's growing. So it is very tough, but we're gonna keep doing it.
So I became an actress in Wichita when I randomly got on their Facebook group, and about 3 years ago I was in a film race with a few of the guys that worked at a local news anchor station. They put out an ad saying, hey, we need a female actress. And I had done musical theater in the past. I've done a few commercials when I was younger, and I kind of went, okay, well, why not? And got into that film race, found out we got third, and it kind of just became like a fever sensation ever since. Like, I was like, hey, I kind of like that. And after that, I've just been hooked.
I became a Wichita filmmaker a couple of years ago. We moved to Wichita from my hometown. There wasn't a whole lot of opportunities there for me to really get my stuff out on the filmmaking scene, but in Wichita there were tons of opportunities for me to be able to show my work. My dad had presented me, or he told me about the local 24-hour film race that Down to the Wire and Tallgrass puts on, and at first I didn't really want to compete in it. I was kind of still self-conscious about my work. I didn't think that it was good enough to be part of the Wichita filmmaking scene. But after his pushing and his prodding, I went ahead and entered it with a couple of my friends. And over that weekend, we shot the movie, and we had a great time doing it. And we were pretty successful at the film race, and that kind of filled me with some more confidence.
Probably the best experience I had in filmmaking, and bear in mind, I don't consider myself a filmmaker. I cause them to be made, but was the movie King Kung Fu. That was the first and last attempt at a full-length feature movie, and it was joyful. Probably the first 2 months, I think I slept 4 hours a day. I was consumed with it. It was an incredible feeling. I've always laughed about a sales meeting that Martin Umansky had one Saturday morning when he said, if I was a salesman for Cake TV, I'd wake up every morning trembling with excitement. And I thought that was the funniest thing I'd ever heard in a sales meeting. But that happened to me. I wake up every morning, I couldn't wait to get done what we were going to do that day. And if you're ever thinking about getting into the film and video business, you better feel that way or you'll never make it.
What's the most enjoyable experience in filmmaking? There isn't one. Filmmaking is so enjoyable that every project you work on. Now, I guess I should, I can talk about some bad experiences in filmmaking too, but no, everything you do, and it wasn't just winning awards. What was great was, as I say, them leaving me alone to just, because I was learning as I was doing, you know. But again, the creativity was up to me, and I was successful at it. I mean, you know, this is not bragging. It's just I was very happy that I was successful with it, of course. But you can do so much. The thing about film that is so different from anything else is, one, it's a culmination of all the arts. It's composition, it's lighting, it's music, it's script. It's such a joy to do this, because what film can do that hardly anything else really can, at least not the separate parts. Like I can get emotional during a concert, or even in a play once in a while, although the distance with a play is different, but emotion comes out of watching films. You know, you're putting light and shadow up on the wall, and people will cry or laugh or be scared, and it's just light and shadow up on the wall. It's fantastic, you know. I love it. So yeah, filmmaking in itself is the most enjoyable aspect of filmmaking. I really have to say that.
You know, these Wings players, you know, a lot of them were Europeans, of course, and when they finished their time at the Wings, they went home. And it was just big characters for this movie. So we were able to raise enough funding to fund that trip. We took our whole, you know, we got a small crew of 5 people, but we were able to pay for the travel expenses and lodging for all 5 of us to go over there. Just many times during that trip, I stopped and, you know, I'm standing looking at this beautiful architecture in Copenhagen. Like, there's no way I would have ended up here on my own. You know, this movie made that possible. I would have never even dreamt of making a trip to Copenhagen or London. But the fact that we, you know, pursued this story, it landed us there. It's a trip of a lifetime, as far as I'm concerned. So that's my best filmmaking experience.
Yeah, for me, I think it was, you know, just the single best day was it was the night that my documentary premiered at Roxy's downtown in Wichita, because I had basically just created something from nothing, except for right here, and you know, had a lot of help, and all the people who had helped me and supported me and were just there for me were, most of them were in that venue that night. We were so anxious for people to watch it and, you know, tell us what they thought, and such a gratifying moment for that to finally, you know, come to light, and you know, I still get chills thinking about it. And I think that's when I truly felt like a filmmaker.
I think the most enjoyable experience I've had in filmmaking is, you know, I'd probably say it's the process of making the film itself. It's kind of like, you know, the journey. I've done a lot of side jobs. One of them was like installing windshields for Safelite in feedlots in western Kansas when it's 105 degrees, and as you're cutting out the windshield, the glass breaks and shatters, and, like, you know, so you're bleeding and you're sweating and it smells like cow crap. And so this is a much better job than doing almost anything else. And it's really fun. It can be a lot of work. There have been many times when I've said, you know, you hear the saying, it's not all glamour and glitz in Hollywood, and that's absolutely true. You could be working a 22-hour day and then turn around and have to get up and work another 18-hour day in order to get everything right. And
as much fun as it looks like it's doing, it can be a lot of work. But the perks are also great as well. So a lot of the people that I've met, in the film industry, and having that kind of influence and to be able to kind of pick their brains and be around and being a part of what that history is really something unique and special.
So my most enjoyable experience filmmaking, it's an odd reality that this is how it became something that we really enjoyed together. And I asked the gang what was their favorite moment, and several of them said that it was all the same moment. During the making of the film Lemon Parade, it was a short film for the 24-hour film festival. We had, it was a musical, we had to make all the songs. You had to cut all the songs at the beginning of the day, and the rest of the day you're lip syncing. So that means you have to write everything really early, and then everything else has to be perfectly timed. Well, we realized that in the middle of this song there should be a moment where it's like this, hey, it's just somebody go, hey, but you can't buy that. You have to make it. So there's a moment where we had all of the guys on the team literally in a closet with a mic in the center of us that all just had to go 3, 2, 1 and say the word hey. And in the film, there's a moment where the fairy godfather of rock and roll is singing a song, and in the middle of the shot he goes, hey! And you hear that hey. Well, all the guys that were part of that remember that as awesome. As a group of people that we just went, hey, it's so silly. But it's that brotherhood of filmmakers, that group of people all coming together to do something. We're like, I'm in that voice. I'm part of that voice. And it was, yeah. And it's production guys, it's guys that were acting in it, it's writers, all just saying hey in a room. But it's part of the song, and it's actually where our name is come from now. Lemon Parade Films is from that film and the making of it.
I think the most enjoyable experience I've had, I'd say probably experiences, would be the Down to the Wire film, the film races we've done. I've been involved in most of them, competing-wise, I think, except for maybe 2 years. And it's just so much fun, and the teams that I'm with, we always do comedies just because there's something about like doing just the absurdity of being up super late, and it just gets funnier, and the more ridiculous you make it, it's just such a fun kind of experience. And then the adrenaline rush, and just being able to like, how are we going to put this together? And then you get done and you see it up on the screen at the Orpheum. That's just a cool feeling. I mean, even it feels the same. Even we did it a couple years ago when we won first place 2 years in a row. That was even just like that rush of, I don't know. Those are fun. Those are fun moments.
Film acting so far, I really had a fun time with the music video Trailer Park Queen with Mushroom Thump. It's a band, and they had it was kind of like another random find. I had a friend that needed an actress, and I think right now the video has over a few 10,000, 50,000 following, maybe more, maybe not. I don't know. It's popular though. It went viral. So that was probably the most fun because I got to be a serial killer, kind of. I got to dance in it. I got to be dramatic. So that was a really fun experience. Another one I would have to say was actually just kind of for an actor's film reel, where one of the directors and producers in town got a whole bunch of actors and actresses together at Cowtown, and we did like this old Western time theme direction of a play, and it actually was really cool. And I got to be one of the minor character, like a love interest character. And I had a lot of fun with that just because of the scenery and getting to meet everyone around and just kind of feeling like I was actually on a movie set. So it was a lot of fun.
The most enjoyable experience of filmmaking to me has to be the community, the collaboration, and just the act of getting all your friends together and having a big idea and being able to execute it with them. I love telling stories. I think that is the best way that humans can communicate with each other is through storytelling. And when you have an idea in your head and a story you want to tell, it's an amazing thing to be able to get people together and put that story into practice and be able to show people. your ideas?
What I consider my best work is work that I haven't done yet. You see, I am my worst critic. So even when I do something and I have friends or people I don't know praise me and say how good it was, I smile and say thank you, but I've already dissected myself and I know that it wasn't that good. So my best work to me is something that I haven't done yet, because I strive to be better each time out. So when I hit my best project, I'm going to be done. So I'm not there yet.
Everything's different. Every project's different, and I try to make every character different, or and everything else. So it's hard for me to say what I consider that. I think career-wise, for me, what I consider my work that's brought me the most exposure would be the film Home on the Range, made by Lone Chimney Films.
It's difficult to decide what would be a best work. I see it in pieces. Sometimes it's hard as a filmmaker, just like a writer. You know, I think I see certain parts of certain films in different ways. Sometimes you also have a wonderful time on set, but the project may not be that good in the end. And vice versa. You might have a great project that kind of stunk on set. I think Home on the Range was a docudrama, and in many ways it's probably my best work. But I look at The Road to Valhalla, and academically I'm very proud of it, because I would put it in any college classroom. I'd put it in any classroom. It's just a hearty work. And so I like them for different reasons. But both those two films both are my favorites, I guess.
Well, and once again, my best work, I'll refer back to, it comes in segments. You know, hopefully you grow, you get better. Sometimes I believe that in this industry, you have not as much good work as sometimes subpar, just because you're learning or the situations. Once again, it's hard to pinpoint one thing. There's times where you're on shoots. I'm a jib operator, like I said, and I'll do a couple scenes, and then I'm like, wow, that's the best thing I've ever done, and get offered another job, and then there'll be something else that comes into it. And well, I like that, and so I don't have any one thing that I hang my hat on as far as my best work, because hopefully anybody in this industry likes to say my best work is yet to come, because you're growing and learning, and people do have things that they like more than they don't. So I can't narrow it in on one thing, if that makes any sense.
I'd have to say my favorite so far, a year or two ago, I was working with Wade Hampton in Art Brut Film, and they did a little short called Death Makes Sense. I get to be across the couch from Emma Craig out of New York. She was a Wichita native.
Yes. Stop it.
But I really enjoy working with Wade Hampton and his crew. He's always able to pull together a really, really tight, well-run group, and we have a lot of fun. And his stuff is quirky and out of the mainstream, and I don't see his stories anywhere else. And it's a privilege to be able to work with him on these, and also to be part of the big show.
What do I consider my best work? I don't know if I consider any of them my best work. Like I said, I've been doing this for about 25 years, and I've done a lot of stuff, but I feel like I haven't. I'm in that weird place where we just now, in the last few years, have starting to make kind of the films I want. So I kind of look at it all and go, maybe one of these days we'll make something good. But off the top of my head, the few things that kind of feel like that I've made, I like. I made one little film called Mr. Sleepy, and I really loved it because I woke up one day and wanted to make this little black and white film. I called a friend of mine who lived across the street, Justin Rupert, who's the only guy in it. And I said, if I write something, can I come over and will you be in it? And he said, sure. So I literally spent like 30 minutes, wrote this little manifesto that this character plays. Went over, in less than an hour, shot him, came back, and like 2 days later had this film cut. And it's always been kind of my template for what I want to do as a filmmaker, because it was so much fun. fun. I didn't care. I just wrote this dumb thing. We shot it, and I still think it's the best thing I ever made. And on the flip side of that, we shot a lot of music videos, and I made one once called Everything That Mattered for a band called Gooding. And it was supposed to be a music video in the music video, so it's a film within a film. And I had to shoot that one myself, and I was terrified because Alex was going to shoot it, and he was there and helped me, but I kept saying, I kind of want the camera, and he goes, very sweetly, he was like, dude, why don't you shoot it? I'm right. So I'm like, so, you know, house full of people and all this stuff. I was real happy how that turned out because I didn't know how it was going to turn out. And there's probably other stuff. We just did a horror film called Kill Estate last year that I just loved, and it was such a quick 6-hour shoot. I'm learning that the best stuff we do is quick stuff. When I overthink it, it's like we just beat it to death. So I'm happy with all of those.
Sorry, I was just goofing you.
But
Ruby.
I know I don't have kids, but I would guess it's like your kids. You love them all for different reasons, you know. Instead of going just this one, I only like this kid. So anyway.
I'm really pleased with all of them on different levels. But I was really happy with last year's movie Sidekicks because we had special effects and we hadn't done that before. And it's a comedy farce dealing with superhero sidekicks who are left to save the world. So we had a speedster. We actually did that. We did the speedster and we did some other special effects, and that was different for us, and it was really kind of a neat experience to have that happen.
I haven't made my best work yet.
Some of the work I'm proudest of is probably some of the music video productions that I did with Moreland and Arbuckle when they were together. Those guys still have their own solo projects, but kind of traveled with those guys a lot, and so I've done a lot of music videos with Moreland and Arbuckle, who were like a big blues band out of Wichita. And then I've done a lot of music videos with Gooding, who has roots in Wichita, but has kind of been out in various places, kind of based in Nashville right now, but has kind of moved from Wichita to Los Angeles, and now he's in Nashville, but they're always touring. And then done some music videos I'm pretty proud of with Danielle Nicole, who's blues artist out of Kansas City, and just got a Grammy nomination, so that was pretty cool.
My best work so far is a documentary that I just produced about Wichita's Wonderland Park, which was the first amusement park that Wichita had. It was from 1906 to 1918, and I really wanted to tell that story because I knew when I first heard about it, it was very obscure to me. I didn't realize that there was an island in the middle of the Arkansas River, and there was an amusement park on there. And also the fact that the park closed around 1918, and I produced this in 2018. I kind of wanted to be, it had been 100 years since the park closed down. I kind of wanted to commemorate that. So it was really cool. And I'm a big fan of history. My whole life has been surrounded in history. Anything in the past I enjoy. So it was right up my alley. History, media, put it together, documentary.
Well, it's so hard to choose what a best work would be. Myself, I'm partial to Potboiler just because, being the editor to all of these movies that we've made, that's the one I never got tired of watching. I could watch it again and again. It's just a fun movie to me. So I would probably lean that one if I had to pick one, gun to my head. But there's parts of all of them that I enjoy.
My favorite is probably A Bag Full of Trouble. I wrote it on a Wednesday, and we had it done by the next Wednesday. And I don't know if it's hard to tell if the movie's the best that we've done, but the whole experience was the most fun I've ever had making a movie, so it might just, taint that.
My favorite project that we've ever done is a tie between Potboiler and Bag Full of Trouble. Potboiler was my favorite experience as an actor, and that was probably the role I felt I performed best in. So that one's, it's easier for me to watch myself doing that part. But then Bag Full of Trouble was the first movie that I felt really a part of as a director and spent a lot of time directing, even though it seems like I was in that bag the entire time. You know, I got to do everything. I was pre-production, I was acting in it, I was directing.
Just kill him already!
Everything I didn't, or the only thing I didn't do was edit. So that one I'm most proud of as a whole.
Probably the one that I'm most proud of us accomplishing is Ghost Rider. It was a 100-hour film race. We had some issues with some medical stuff on set, and then everybody just kind of rallied together, pushed forward, and we did place in the top 15 out of, I don't know, 100 and something teams. So that was pretty cool.
So far, I do consider the most recent movie we did called Pearl. Right now, it is on Amazon Prime. We were able and blessed enough to premiere it at the AMC North Arc Theater the weekend before Thanksgiving. We sold out the entire theater within a few hours. As a matter of fact, some people even bought tickets and said they would stand and watch the movie. So we had pretty much a standing room only at the AMC Theater. And to date, we have almost 4.5 million minutes viewed of the movie, and it's holding fast with a 4.5 star rating out of 5 on Amazon Prime right now.
Our best work is probably, I'd say our best work from a technical perspective is whatever was the last thing that we shot, because we do learn from previous projects and get better every single time. That being said, I always think back on the first attempt at a short horror film that we made as being our best one, because of what we had to work with at the time, what we were able to use and make and create, and the product that ended up getting delivered from it with what we had to work with was just insane. So we built a really clunky, giant, heavy PVC pipe dolly track. We made all sorts of just low budget type stuff to get those cinematic movements. It was the first time doing that ever. And there was a scene in the horror short film where Cameron's behind the camera, and my character is pulling a sheet off of this chest. And so Cameron, and it's just us two. That's it. Cameron's moving this camera on this PVC pipe dolly track, which was not smooth at all. And at the same time, he's pulling a fishing line that's connected and rigged through like the rafters of his basement to a light switch on the other side of the room. And he's like pulling it, trying to time it perfectly so that when I start reaching for the cloth, the light turns on in the background, and then it's a really scary scene. And there's so much stupid work that went into it, and it was so complicated and it could have been solved with just some nice equipment and an extra person, but we made it work with what we had, and that was a huge accomplishment for us. So
it's funny when you're into a project, and when you're into a project and you're filming and something goes bad, I learned a big lesson, and that lesson was stop, go away, come back another day.
Oh golly! Luckily, it was released, but it was four-walled, which is an expression or definition of when the producer puts the can of film under his arm and actually goes around the theaters and shows it themselves. And it's not that it was necessarily that bad of an experience, but it luckily perished long before it made it across the continent. There's only one print, and that was confiscated by one of the financial people because they hadn't paid for their production yet, the investors. So somewhere in somebody's lawyer's office, that thing's still sitting, probably holding the corner of a table up to keep it from wobbling. I don't know.
I don't have any projects that I would forget. I've learned that life lesson in general is all the BS is what makes you who you are. And as an artist, my God, I visit this artist every few months named Clark Britton. He used to teach at WSU, one of the best artists you'll ever meet. He's 88, And he told me once, 90% of what we make is garbage. We do this for the 10%, and I think that's true of, I think most of what I make is garbage. But when I hit on something that I actually think is kind of good, so I don't regret, I don't have any horrible things that I go, oh God, if I could go back in time and erase that. No, I wish I had more garbage. I wish I had made more, so.
There are things I wish had happened differently, but yeah, I don't want to forget any of them, because everything you do is going to help you the next time you have to come up against that obstacle. I mean, it's going to happen again. Trying to hit an emotion on camera, a strong one, on command, is tough, and you sometimes it's like we have to get to a certain place and recall your memories or what have you, your feelings, your emotions, and then to turn that on when all the technical people are ready, because it's like, okay, we're going to be ready in 15 minutes. 15 minutes later, okay, it's going to take another 30 minutes to get this set up. We've got to change this thing, and you're sitting there on your own, peeking, trying to get to the emotion you need to get on camera, and then you get there in your mind, and you're like, okay, it's been 30 minutes, let's go. They go, let's go. It's going to take another 20, 30 minutes before we get ready, so just go, keep getting ready. So you go on this weird little roller coaster emotionally inside yourself, and then they say, okay, we're ready now, and you're on the low, and you're like, darn, all right. I wish I had that one to do again, because you only have, okay, we only got a few minutes to get this one done. Okay, it's good enough. Let's move on. Like, can I have another 2 hours to get this right, please? But you learn that, that's how it is. So you gotta just keep going on. But no, I wouldn't trade any of them or get rid of any of them. Some are good, some are bad, but they're all necessary.
It was our first delve into stop motion.
We had a bunch of equipment that had died on us. We had like a printer that didn't work. We had some VCRs that didn't work. So I had the idea, hey, what if they all were fighting in a war together, and then we could have some explosions, and we could run over the VCR and blow up the printer and all kinds of things. But in order to make it to where they move, we had to do stop motion, and Tim about went cuckoo with that one.
Stop motion with like action figures, it's great. You move one arm a little bit, move it again. When you do it with a VCR, which is a box, no. So that's our worst experience.
Yeah, I mean, the film itself actually turned out to be quite funny, but it was significantly longer to create than we would have liked. So we were able to salvage it, and we did have explosions and all that kind of stuff. But just for fun afterwards, with all, there were like 10 characters, so we had to get different voice actors for each of them. We had a little fun with ourselves, and my mom's printer died again, so I grabbed it, and we made a joke, follow-up video where we said that, hey Tim, you want to do this again? And we had Tim lose it, and we grabbed the baseball bat and just beat the tar out of this printer.
There was a project that I was on that it was rough. It was tough moving forward, but there was a great group of cast and crew, and we kind of floated everything else when some of the decision makers wouldn't make decisions. But because of that, I actually was able to connect with one of the guys that I now make film on a regular basis with.
There's not really a project I wish I would forget. Just better planning with a certain project. There was one where we were filming in a model home, and we thought we had all the permission. We got with the real estate company. We got with who we thought we needed to get with, and ended up finding out we didn't have the right permission. The Bel Air Police Department was dispatched. AR-15s pulled on us, and it was it was very. I wish going back, I don't regret filming it. I just wish we would have been more diligent with make sure we had the right permissions to film in the home at the time. So. That's the only thing I wish would have done differently.
Down to the Wire 2017. I had actually created about 6 pieces to donate for film racers to use. And at first I was like, yeah, great, this is great. And then you go back and like listen to the files later and go, I thought this was a good idea. Like, I thought that piece was a good idea. I thought that piece was a good idea. And just, if I could put it all on floppy disks and just stack them in a fire and douse them in gasoline. That's probably what I would do when I listen to them now. Like, that's how much I hate. And it's the perfectionist in me that does that. But I think that's any creative. But I have an amazing therapist now, so it's okay.
My future goal is to live as long as I can. I am making a little film right now. I talked about when I was in high school making films. Well, I had these friends, and we got together and we made, there was a TV show at the time, syndicated TV show called Soldiers of Fortune. And it was these two guys who were buddies who went out and solved the world's problems. And it usually involved beating people up and shooting them and stuff, of course. And so we really liked that show. And so the one guy was tall and dark and the other guy was shorter and blonde. And I'm not really tall, but I'm taller than my pal, Bill. And so he was blonde and I was dark haired. So we decided we were going to make, and that's the first, quote, feature we ever made was Soldiers of Fortune. It ran about 10 minutes, but it was a narrative story sort of thing. So then when we were seniors, we decided we were going to do one more because, of course, we were going to graduate and whatever. So we did another Soldiers of Fortune in the interim while we did a little horror film and some stuff. But so we were going to do this other Soldiers of Fortune. Well, this one ran half an hour, and I shot it in scope. I had a scope lens like CinemaScope that squeezes the picture and then unsqueezes it on the screen. And we had a volcano eruption while I'm having a fist fight with this guy, and he ends up getting burned by the lava and killed, and my brother, stuff like this. Well, okay, so we made these Soldiers of Fortune movies. So I had a high school reunion after my wife passed. I was talking to these two guys, Bill and Dave, who were my best friends in high school. Bill lives in San Francisco. Dave lives in Washington, D.C. And I was talking about, I've always wanted to go to Hawaii. Well, somehow, this was not long after my wife passed, and I think they decided it would be good therapy for me to get involved in something like this. So we went, they set up, we were going to Hawaii, and in order to get me to agree to this, they said, we'll make a film. So we decided we were going to make another Soldiers of Fortune film. And that's what the one is that I'm working on editing right now. It's Soldiers of Fortune 60 years later. And this is a real comedy. It isn't meant to be serious at all, but it is the over the hill gang, not only as Soldiers of Fortune, but as the filmmakers too. But I think it makes an interesting contrast because what I've done is we sit in a bar and we talk about old times. And then I take clips out of the old movies that we made when we were in high school, where we were kids. Well, in fact, I had a shot from the final, the long Soldiers of Fortune film that we made, where I was wearing a red and white striped shirt, and I still have that shirt. So I wore it, and in this clip that I took out of it, I'm wearing that, and my pal Bill's wearing just kind of a blue shirt. So we found a shirt that looked like that was blue that he was wearing. So when we meet up again, we're wearing these two shirts still in Hawaii. And then it gets off into this adventure where I'm trying to track down the villains that were in the original films that we made back because they're all, and my brother's still alive, and so he was a villain again, and then my pal Dave was a villain too. And so we meet up with him again, and so we made this movie, and that's what I'm putting together right now.
My future goals. Well, at my age and profession, things are pretty much on the wane. Practical effects, for the most part, have given way to computer-generated effects, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but if you have a generation of younger filmmakers that they grew up with CGI, they grew up, when they're playing at home, not to say anything's wrong with their artistic ability, but when you're really young, you're playing, you've got a computer, and you can do a lot of effects, so you're just used to it.
My future goals include living to 128 years old in good health. As far as acting goes, I plan on winning a couple of Oscars, a Golden Globes, some Tonys. But really, those would be good, admirable goals, but they aren't really my goals because that's not what I look to get out of acting. I act because I have no choice but to act. I like to say acting is simply lying and being believable. Most people don't like to be a liar, but I live to be a liar. It's in my blood.
Well, I have this play that I wrote in the 1980s, and I've written numerous plays, and I've had many of them produced. This one's never been produced as a play, because I always thought that it would make a better film. I have workshopped throughout the years many different scenes from the play on film and video. I've also adapted the play into a novel, thinking that would give some groundwork for anybody wanting to make it into a film. And I have already, I've been working on a screenplay version of this. So I really want to make the film version of this particular play. It's constantly, in my play, in my mind, and I'm driven to tell the story.
Future goals, we want to expand. We want to actually get into a longer project where we can take more time with it. But that means that we'd have to get outside that 5 to 6 week realm with the students. So we're still trying to figure that out. And of course, it's trying to figure out what the best challenge is for us. Do we want to challenge ourselves technically? Do we need more toys to play with? Or do we need to really focus on the acting? I mean, we kind of make a decision from project to project. But I think that the future, at least for us, is we're going to see a lot of student-produced work now that we have the filmmaking degree. So it won't just be the theater department producing movies. I think we'll have students that are actually producing documentaries and shorts. It's already happening in some of their classes. And being able to take that and showcase it for the public and say, yeah, this is a real thing, this is what I'm learning to do, and it's work. And it's hard work.
I have a beautiful wife and 2 great kids. They're wonderful. We laugh together every single day. With them, I am very happy. But I'm not happy with myself. The only time I'm at peace with myself is when I'm doing something creative, when I'm working, when I'm filming something is the only, it can be chaos, it can be stressful, it can be things are going wrong, everything else, but if I'm on a set working, I'm filming, it's the only time I'm at peace with myself. It's the only time I'm happy with myself. So, plans for the future, keep on making movies till I'm dead. I've thought many times there's a fine line between delusion and tenacity. Right now, that portion of a bitch Yonker still thinks he's going to make a movie. If I start making a movie next year, we get the next movie finally made. Like, damn, you got to hand to that Leaf Yonker guy. He stuck it out 30 years. He never gave up. Same guy. Delusion, pathetic. Damn, the guy just has balls and he stuck it out, Well, my motto is, particularly with filmmaking, this game is not over till you give up or die. I ain't giving up, and I'm not dead yet. So I plan to make another movie.
So our future goals, my future goals, and the team's future goals is the ability to continue to write and produce things with money involved. So this entire film has been on a volunteer basis, no dollars spent whatsoever on making any of it. We bought equipment and things. I mean, that's not entirely true, but no one's been paid for their time to do any of this. And it's a passion for all of us to be allowed to continue to do this and make money for it. Now, almost everybody that's in the films does, for a living, acting or writing or producing or photography or whatever. but they want to do what we're already doing as a full-time and really see that grow. One of the guys that we have, he's a finance guy. I mean, every day he's sitting at a desk, and he's one of our lead actors in like everything we do. So how can you be a guy that sits and looks at spreadsheets all day but have the passion for creating film? And so I'll sit down at dinner with him and go, man, I can't wait till you can do this all the time. If you want to do this all the time. And it's, and that growing that dream. Yeah. So.
As far as the future's concerned, it's hard to say. I'm kind of playing it by ear still. I'd love to just kind of be able to make movies and have that be the thing I do, one way or another, whether that's making my own movies with Illumination Cinema, or if it's taking some sort of real, television network job working in storyboards or writing for animated shows. Sky's the limit.
I have had several youth that I've been pleased to mentor. And if they're serious about filmmaking or anything within film, I encourage them to take acting classes, dance, horseback riding. I find that extremely beneficial for an actor. I encourage them to get involved with their community, even if they want to be in film. It doesn't hurt to be on a small stage because you don't have to overact if you're in a very small atmosphere. You can really play to your audience that way. And there are more and more filmmaking courses in our area than ever before. They can start there and then they can expand on it by going wherever they have to at that point. But I really want to encourage them not to leave altogether.
If I was to give some advice to anyone looking to pursue film, I would say don't, unless you really want to be exhausted, defeated, unless you have really come to terms with being rejected. I think art in general is a medium or a field that has built-in rejection in it. It's inherently something that you have to know how to deal with rejection. You have to be self-aware enough to know that the rejection has probably very little to do with you as much as that person who watched it or looked at it or the audience member or whoever looks at it. If you don't handle rejection well, this isn't the place to be, because you're going to hear way more no's than you're ever going to hear kinda, or maybe. So I wouldn't say pursue this unless you're comfortable with being rejected, and then the things that come with the hard work and as they say, blood, sweat, and tears in the cliche, but it's one of those things that you have to have thick skin, I believe. And if you don't have thick skin, this is very defeating and humbling very quickly.
We have people reach out to us all the time about younger people in high school and still asking us for advice when it comes to filmmaking and videography in general. And something that Cameron brought up earlier that was a really good point was to not be so hard on yourself when you see other people's work. It's so easy, and we're both guilty of it, of getting on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and then seeing somebody's video that they put out and it looks amazing, and you're like, gosh, if everybody's doing this and it looks that good, then what's the point of us tackling that? But you can't think that way. You just have to look at yourself. You've got to concentrate on growing yourself, and just keep pursuing it and just keep shooting. Because if we hadn't had that whole time period in our lives when we were in middle school where we didn't just go out every single week and film a video, we wouldn't be anywhere where we are right now. Mm-hmm. There's no way. It's just when you go out on the field and you're shooting, doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter if it's awful or great, you're learning from it, and that's the best thing that you can do.
start small and stay humble. Any job is not too big or too small. There have been times when, even in Wichita, I've been on a film crew, and that's okay. You may be looked at for acting later. You may be with directors who are new and they don't know what they're doing, but that's the beauty of Wichita, is that it's a growing art scene. And you have patience because you're going to be learning just as much as they are. And you're more likely to meet contacts through that. And you're more likely to just find a new avenue of people to go to, and you'll get hired more. And I think with staying humble too, you'll get rehired and recast, because there are so many times I hear from a lot of my friends, well, we don't have enough men, we don't have enough females, because the people that we know are divas, that they're hard to work with. Well, if you're going to do film anywhere, you're going to have to start small, even in LA, so it's important to stay humble and to remember that this is your growth too.
I love seeing the youth because they just have a fire for it. Like it doesn't matter what the subject matter is. It could be completely comedy. It could be drama. No matter what the genre is. I love seeing the youth that are very fiery about it now. Whether it's the emerging artists through Tall Grass program, or it's someone like Kate Conway, who's in Boston, studying filmmaking and then coming home and making films with everyone from her own personal short films to the band Cartwheel. Seeing young people, seeing women taking the lead in filmmaking here in the city. That excites the hell out of me. So
I can only speak from my little half acre of it, and that half acre comes from an educational point of view. So we have several students that already, while they're working on their filmmaking degree, are going out there and booking video work. And that's nice to see. That's what we want to see, is that they're not afraid to go out there and dip their toes into it. I read something, and I don't know the source, I'm sorry, but I read something a few weeks ago that said, video's how we communicate now. That is how we as a people communicate, is through video. And so, that says a lot. So there's a hunger for it. There's a need for it. People want those stories told that way. So Wichita, I think, offers a lot of opportunities as far as location. We've even have, some actors here that can be called upon to perform. And the folks that are dealing with studios and those that understand the tech, they're available as well. I think the big thing with this is, can you find a writer? Can you find a writer? Because you can find the actors, you can find the technology in Wichita. My question is, where are the writers? Because that's where it starts. And once you get that link there in the chain, I think we could see some really fantastic stuff happening in this area for independent local filmmaking.
I know what myself and others have been trying to do here. We've been trying to train and bring up the next round of filmmakers. There's a lot of them that are out there right now. There's a lot of really good people in film in Wichita who are doing their own thing, which is fantastic. And, sooner or later, there's going to be more and more people in Wichita breaking out with films. And if we're going to have that type of an industry here in Wichita, which I think we could be one of the number ones in the country in terms of filmmaking, money, revenue created by the industry, we have to have people in place who know what they're doing. And that's why myself and others have started these programs, so we can train the next generation of filmmakers to start making films, so they know what they're doing, and then they can have jobs and make a living doing this and not have to go anywhere, not have to leave. But I think from what I've seen from, up and coming filmmakers here in Wichita, it's been very overwhelming. I mean, it's been incredible how many people there are out there that are not only making films in Wichita but are making a living off of it, which is fantastic. And I think that we're just at the very beginning of that.
So I think that Tallgrass and I think WSU is starting to do some good things. But there are many things happening in the right direction to make filmmaking viable in this city and to give opportunities for people, for Wichitans to see movies made by Wichitans. And I think that that's one of the important things. And like I said, I think that the internet is a great tool. And I think it's amazing that within hours, your movie is available on the other side of the world. And that wasn't available to anybody, 10 or 15 years ago. And now it is available to everybody. But I think Wichita has recently begun to pride itself in its art community, and that's absolutely reflective in what's happening with filmmaking. And we see it every year with the quality of films that are coming in, not only from Wichitans but from young filmmakers, amateur filmmakers from all over the world.
Well, I think a lot of people, what holds them back is that it's a scary thing. I mean, it's scary to put yourself out there and get your, put your work up to be scrutinized and seen and made fun of or picked apart, whatever. That's a scary thing. So I think that might hold some people back. And I really just, you have to go for it, like I said. And, filmmaking is such a cool thing, and it's not easy. It's not easy by any means. But I think I would tell most people, don't be afraid to make mistakes, but definitely learn from them.
I had to fight tooth and nail to try to make movies, and my mom tried to be supportive, but sometimes your parents aren't going to support it when you're young. They want you to have a more stable career. Each individual has to make up their mind what's important to them, and for me, like I said before, doing something creative is the only thing that makes me happy. And if you're a young person out there watching this and you know that you are a filmmaker, never let anybody, under any circumstances, try to convince you otherwise.